I've been driving trucks for 26 years. I've crossed every state line you can name, more than once, in every kind of weather God can throw at a windshield. I've fallen asleep at red lights and woken up before they turned green. I know what tired looks like. I know what the road does to your eyes at 3 in the morning, the way the dotted lines start to breathe and the trees lean in like they're listening. So when I tell you what happened on that road, I need you to understand something first. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. I wasn't even that tired. Not really. I'd slept 8 hours that afternoon at a rest stop outside Marquette, and I'd had 2 cups of coffee and a Coke since then. I was as awake as a man gets. That's the part that still keeps me up. Because if I'd been tired, I could tell myself I dreamed it. I could let myself off the hook. But I was awake for all of it. It started with a detour. I was running a load of paper goods down from the Upper Peninsula, headed for a distribution center outside Green Bay. Easy run, boring run, the kind you could do in your sleep, which is probably why I wasn't paying as much attention as I should have been when the orange signs started coming up. Roadwork ahead, detour. Big arrows pointing me off the highway and onto a county road I'd never taken. Now, I've hit 1,000 detours in my life. You learn to trust them, more or less. The DOT puts those signs out, you follow them. Eventually, they dump you back on the highway a few miles down. No big deal. It was 12:51 in the morning when I left the highway. I remember because I checked the clock and did the math on whether I'd still make my delivery window. I figured the detour would cost me 20 minutes, maybe 30. I'd be fine. The county road was 2 lanes, no shoulder to speak of. Pine trees crowding in close on both sides. My headlights carved a little tunnel out of the dark, and that was the whole world. No streetlights, no houses, no other cars. Just me and the hum of the diesel and the trees going by. I followed the detour arrows for maybe 6 miles. They kept me turning, left here, right there, deeper into the woods. And I'll be honest, somewhere around the 4th or 5th turn, a little voice in the back of my head said, "This is a lot of turns for a detour." But I kept following them, because that's what you do. Then I came to a fork, and there was a sign, and the sign said, "Detour," with an arrow pointing right. So I went right, and that was the wrong turn. I know that now. Everything after that, every single thing, came from that one decision to follow an arrow at 1 o'clock in the morning. The clock on my dash rolled over to 1 o'clock, just as my front tires crossed onto that road. The first thing I noticed was that the orange signs stopped. That's normal, I told myself. Detours don't have a sign every 100 feet. They put one at each turn and trust you to drive straight between them. So I drove straight, and I kept driving straight. And the thing about that road was that it didn't curve, not even a little. Most country roads, they follow the land. They bend around a hill. They dip into a creek bottom. They jog left to miss somebody's property line. This one just went. Dead flat, dead straight. 2 lanes of old cracked asphalt running into the dark like somebody had drawn it with a ruler and forgotten to stop. I drove for 10 minutes, then 15. The trees never changed. Same pines, same spacing, same dark gaps between the trunks. I started watching for a mile marker, a driveway, a mailbox, anything. There was nothing, just the road and the trees and my headlights and the little green numbers on my dash clock. After 20 minutes, I started to feel it. I don't know how to describe the feeling except to say it was wrong. Not scary, not yet. Just wrong. The way a room feels wrong when somebody's moved the furniture an inch and you can't figure out what changed. The air felt wrong. The quiet felt wrong. My own headlights felt wrong, like they weren't reaching as far as they should. I turned on the radio to have some noise. Got static. Spun the dial. Static, 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 the whole way across the band. Now that's not unusual out in the deep country. You lose stations. But I couldn't even find the in-between hiss change. It was the same flat gray static at every number, like the dial wasn't connected to anything. I turned it off. And in the quiet, after I turned it off, I realized I couldn't hear the trees. You don't think about it, but when you drive a country road with your window cracked, you hear the wind in the trees, the Doppler whoosh of the truck, pushing air past the trunks. I had my window cracked an inch like always, and there was nothing. The trees were going by at 60 miles an hour, and they made no sound at all. I rolled the window down all the way and stuck my hand out into the air. I felt the wind on my fingers, cold and real, but I couldn't hear it. That's when the first real cold went through me. Not panic, just a single drop of cold right down the middle of my chest. I rolled the window back up to a crack. I told myself to be reasonable. I'm a reasonable man. I figured I'd missed a turn somewhere, that the detour had wanted me to go a different way, and I'd blown past a sign in the dark. The fix for that is simple. You turn around. So I started looking for a place to turn around. With a truck, you can't just whip a U-turn on a 2-lane. You need a wide spot, a crossroad, a driveway, an old logging pull-off. I figured one would come up soon enough. I drove another 10 minutes looking for one. Nothing came. No driveways, no crossroads, no pull-offs. The shoulders stayed too soft and too narrow to risk it, and the trees came right up to the edge of the pavement on both sides like a wall. Finally, I just stopped. Pulled to a halt right there in the middle of the lane, because what did it matter? There wasn't another soul on the road. I figured I'd back up, reverse a couple 100 yards to the fork and take the other way. I put it in reverse and looked in my mirrors, and in my mirrors, the road behind me went straight into the dark, same as ahead, flat, endless, the same trees. But I knew I had come around at least 4 or 5 curves to get onto this road. I remembered the turns, my hands remembered them, and there was not a single curve behind me. The road I'd come down didn't exist anymore. There was just this one straight line, running both directions into a dark that my taillights and my headlights couldn't push back more than 50 feet. I sat there with my foot on the brake and my hand on the shifter for what felt like a long time. Then I put it back in drive, because going forward at least felt like going somewhere. Going backward felt like falling. That was the presence's first lie, I think. Making forward feel safer than back. But I didn't know there was a presence yet. I just knew I wanted to keep moving. The clock said 1:38 when I saw the first sign. It came up slow out of the dark on the right side, a green rectangle on a metal post, the kind that tells you the next town and how far. My headlights caught it and I leaned forward to read it, hungry for it, because a sign meant a town, and a town meant this was over. It said, home, 1 mile. Just that, home and an arrow, and 1 mile. I'd never heard of a town called Home, but I figured, fine, weird name, plenty of weird town names out here. 1 mile. I could do 1 mile. I watched the odometer. I drove 1 mile. I drove 2. I drove 3. At about mile 4, another sign came up. Same green, same post. Home, 1 mile. I felt my stomach drop. I told myself the first sign had been wrong, or I'd misread the distance, or there were 2 towns and I'd passed the first. I kept driving. I watched the odometer roll, 1 mile, 2, home, 1 mile. The same sign, the exact same sign. I know it was the exact same sign because the third time, I slowed way down as I passed it, and I saw there was a dent in the lower left corner of it, a dent shaped like somebody had thrown a rock, and a long pale scratch under the word home. The next one I passed had the same dent, the same scratch. I was driving in a straight line at 50 miles an hour, past the same sign over and over again. And here's the thing that I keep coming back to. A road can be straight. A radio can be broken. The wind can be a trick of the cab. But a sign can't move. A sign with a specific dent and a specific scratch can't be in 4 places at once, 4 miles apart, on a dead straight road. That was the moment I stopped looking for reasonable explanations. Somewhere in me, a door closed on reasonable, and it has never really opened all the way back up since. I picked up my phone. No service. 1 little word in the corner where the bars should be. Searching. I held it up to the windshield, like that ever helps. Watched it. Searching, searching. The little circle spinning. I tried to call my dispatcher anyway. Dead air. Tried 911. The screen flickered and went to a black call screen with the timer running. 0001, 0002, 0003. Like the call had connected, but there was no ringing, no voice, no nothing. Just that timer counting up in a connected call to nobody. Then a sound came through the phone. Not a voice. Breathing. Slow, deep, even breathing. Close to the speaker. The kind of breathing of somebody who is right next to the phone and in no hurry at all. I hung up. Threw the phone on the passenger seat like it was hot. It rang. In the dead quiet of that cab, my phone ringing was about the most terrifying thing I'd ever heard. I looked at the screen. No name, no number. Just calling and that spinning circle. I let it ring. It rang for a long time. Way longer than a phone is supposed to ring before it gives up. 20 rings. 30. I started counting and lost count. Then it stopped, and the screen lit up with a text message. From no number. It said, "Pull over, you're tired." I stared at it, and while I was staring at it, 3 little dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. The dots that mean somebody is typing. Somebody was typing me another message. I turned the phone face down, and I didn't look at it again for a long time. The CB was next. I'd had the CB off. Nobody uses them much anymore, but I keep mine on hand out of habit. Old timer that I am. It clicked on by itself. I heard the little pop of the speaker coming alive, and then the low hiss of an open channel. I hadn't touched it. For a few seconds, there was just the hiss. Then a voice came through. "Anybody copy? This is a driver. I'm lost out here. Anybody copy?" It was a man's voice. Scared, young, maybe. The kind of voice that's trying to sound calm and not managing it. I grabbed the handset before I could think about it. I copy you. Where are you?" The hiss came back. Then the voice again. But it didn't answer my question. It said the same thing, the exact same words, the exact same scared breath in the middle. "Anybody copy? This is a driver. I'm lost out here. Anybody copy?" "I hear you," I said. "I'm right here. What's your 20? Anybody copy?" It was a recording, or it wasn't a recording. It was something playing a man back to me, something that had caught a driver out here once and kept the sound of him being afraid. And I realized, with the worst feeling I have ever had in my life, that the voice on the CB was a man who had been exactly where I was, lost on this road, calling for help, and nobody had answered him. And now the only thing left of him was this loop of his fear, playing on a channel in the dark for the next driver to find. I reached to turn the CB off, and just before my fingers touched the dial, the looping voice stopped, mid-word, cut off clean, and a different voice came through, lower, calm, right up against the microphone, so close I could hear the wet click of a mouth opening. It said one word. Stop. I turned it off. My hand was shaking so bad it took me 3 tries to find the knob. I want to tell you about the speed, because that's when I understood what it wanted. After the CB, I did the only thing my body knew how to do. I drove faster. I put my foot down, and I got that truck up to 70, 75, which is too fast for a loaded rig on a road like that. But I didn't care. I wanted out. I wanted distance. I wanted to put so many miles between me and that voice that it couldn't reach me. And the road let me. The trees blurred. The engine roared. The dotted line came at me like tracer fire. And nothing changed. The same trees, the same dark, the same home. 1 mile sign sliding past me every few minutes with its little dent and its little scratch, no matter how fast I went. I did the math in my head. At 75 miles an hour for almost an hour, I should have crossed half the state. I should have hit a town, a highway, a state line, the ocean. I'd gone 70 or 80 miles by the odometer, and I was in exactly the same place. So I slowed down, slowly, carefully, watching the trees, and the trees went by slower. And when I came down to a crawl, 10 miles an hour, the trees crawled too. And when I stopped, when I took my foot off the gas and let that truck roll to a dead stop in the middle of the road, everything went silent. And I do mean everything. The engine was still running. I could feel it idling under me, but I couldn't hear it, the same way I couldn't hear the wind. The whole world had gone to that flat, dead, pressing quiet. And in that quiet I understood that the road did not care how fast I went. It only cared whether I went at all. The presence didn't want to catch me. It wanted me to stop. Speed was nothing to it. Distance was nothing to it. The only thing I had, the only card in my whole hand, was that as long as my wheels were turning, it stayed out there. The moment they stopped, I put my foot back on the gas. The engine roared back into my ears. The wind came back. The trees started moving, and out in the dark ahead of me, far down the road at the very edge of my headlights, something that had been standing in the middle of my lane stepped off the road and into the trees. I only saw it for half a second. I couldn't tell you what it was. Tall, thin, wrong in a way I can't put words to, like a man drawn by somebody who'd only had a man described to them. It moved sideways off the road in one smooth step, not walking, just moving, the way a shadow moves when you turn a lamp. And then it was gone, and I drove through the spot where it had been standing, and there was nothing there. But I knew it had let me see it on purpose. It wanted me to know it was on the road with me now. It wanted me to know it had been standing in my lane while I sat there stopped, and that if I'd stayed, stopped just a little longer, it would have walked the rest of the way to my door. I started talking to myself after that, out loud, just to hear a human voice in that cab. "Okay," I said. "Okay. You keep driving. You keep the wheels turning. You don't stop. You don't stop for anything. Sun comes up. This is over. Just get to the sun. I looked at the clock. It said 1:52. I'd been on that road for the better part of an hour by my own count. The sky should have been crawling toward dawn, or at least the clock should have been crawling toward it. But the clock said 1:52, and a few minutes later I looked again, and it said 1:52, and a few minutes after that, it said 1:52. The clock had stopped, or time had stopped. Out there, after 1 in the morning. There was no after 1 in the morning. There was just 1 in the morning, forever. The deepest and darkest part of the night. The hour when the whole world is asleep, and a man on a lonely road is the only thing awake for 100 miles. The sun was not coming. I understood that, sitting there at a frozen 1:52. There was no dawn at the end of this. There was no end at the end of this. There was just the road, and the dark, and the thing on the road with me, and how long I could keep my foot on the gas before something made me lift it. So it became a different kind of fight, not a race to morning, a test of how long I could refuse to stop. And the presence, it turned out, was very, very patient, and it knew exactly how to make a man stop. The first thing it tried was the deer. It came out of the trees on the right, full sprint, a big doe, and it ran right out in front of my truck. I had a half-second to react. Every instinct in a driver's body says you stand on the brakes when something runs into the road. I didn't. I don't know how I didn't. Maybe because some deeper, older part of me had already decided that stopping was death, and that part overrode the instinct. I kept my foot down, and I braced for the hit. There was no hit. The doe passed through my hood, and my windshield, and my body like it was made of smoke, and it was gone, and there was no thump, no blood, no nothing. It hadn't been real. It had been bait to make me hit the brakes. And after the doe, it sent more. A dog standing in the middle of the lane, dead still, staring into my lights, the way a real dog will freeze. A child, I swear to God, a small child in pajamas, standing on the center line with its back to me, and I had to grip the wheel until my hands cramped to keep from breaking for that one, because what kind of man doesn't break for a child? A car stopped sideways across both lanes, hazards blinking, and I drove straight at it at 50 miles an hour, absolutely certain I was about to die, and it winked out a half-second before I hit it like it had never been there. Each one was a hand reaching for the brake pedal through my own leg. Each one was the presence, learning what I'd stop for, testing me, getting closer to the thing that would finally make me lift my foot. And the worst part, the part it understood about me better than I understood about myself. Each time I didn't stop for one of those things, I felt a little less human. I drove through a child. I drove through a child to save myself. It didn't matter that the child wasn't real. My hands knew what they'd done. The presence wasn't just trying to make me stop. It was trying to make me into the kind of man who'd hate himself enough to want to. When the bait didn't work, it came to the truck. The first knock came from the trailer. You know your own truck. You know every sound it makes. The creaks, the rattles, the way the load shifts on a turn. This wasn't any of those. This was a knock. 3 of them. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. From inside the trailer, behind me, dead center. I was hauling paper goods, sealed pallets. There was nothing in that trailer that could knock, and nothing alive that could be back there. And even if there was, we were going 50 miles an hour down a road in the middle of nowhere. Knock, knock, knock. I watched the trailer in my side mirror, like I'd be able to see through the walls of it. The trailer rode steady, and then, while I was watching the mirror, the whole truck rocked, just slightly, the suspension dipping on the driver's side, the way it dips when somebody steps up onto the running board, the way it dips when somebody climbs on. Then it dipped again further back, and again further back than that. Weight, moving down the length of my truck from the cab towards the trailer, slow and heavy, step by step. Something had climbed onto my rig at 50 miles an hour, and it was walking back along it, and I could feel every footstep in the springs. And then the footsteps started coming up. Onto the roof, right over my head. Thump, thump. Slow, flat, heavy steps, walking up the front of the trailer and onto the top of my cab, until they were directly above me. And then they stopped, right over the driver's seat, right over my head. I looked up. There's nothing to see up there, just the headliner. But I looked up anyway because you can't not. And the metal of the roof, right over me, pushed down. It dented inward, slow, with a deep groaning of the steel, the way a roof bends when a great weight settles onto it and gets comfortable. A shallow, dish-shaped dent, pressing down toward my head. And then it stopped and held, and I knew that whatever had walked up there was now lying down on the roof of my cab, directly above me, settling in, like it planned to ride along for a while. I did not stop the truck. I want that on the record. With something lying on my roof, with the steel bowed down a foot from my face, I kept my foot on the gas and I kept the wheels turning, because I understood by then that the roof was just another hand reaching for the brake. It wanted me to stop and get out. It wanted me to look. The whole thing on the roof was a question, and the question was, aren't you going to stop and see what I am? And the only answer that kept me alive was no. It stayed up there a long time, long enough that I almost got used to the weight of it, if you can believe that. A man can get used to anything if it doesn't kill him in the first 10 minutes. Then it started to move again. But not away. It slid forward. I heard it, felt it, the long, slow drag of something coming down off the roof and over the front edge of the cab, down the windshield side. And a hand, I'm going to call it a hand, came down over the top of the windshield from above. Long fingers, too many knuckles, gray, the color of a dead thing, but moving slow and certain. The fingers spread out across the top of my windshield and gripped the edge of the roof, and I knew the rest of it was about to lower down in front of the glass and look at me. I did the only thing I could think of. I jerked the wheel. I swerved that truck hard, left then right, threw it back and forth across both lanes, and I heard the thing on the roof lose its grip and go sliding. The hand vanished off the top of the windshield. I felt the weight tear loose from the roof, and the suspension came back up level all at once, like a great pressure lifting, and in my side mirror I saw something dark come off the back of the trailer and tumble onto the road behind me and roll into the dark. For about 30 seconds, I thought I'd won something. Then I looked in my mirror again, and far back on the road, in the red of my taillights, it was standing up, slowly, unfolding to its full height, which was too tall, taller than my trailer, and it started to come after me, not running, walking, long, smooth, unhurried strides that ate the distance between us no matter how fast I drove, until it slid back out of the red light and into the dark, and I felt it draw level with me again, out there beside the truck, pacing me in the trees. It could have caught me any time it wanted. I understood that now. It was faster than my truck. It was stronger than my truck. The chase wasn't a chase. It was a courtesy. It was letting me run. because the whole point was for me to stop running on my own. It paced me for what felt like an hour, out there in the trees, just beyond the headlights, keeping exactly even with my window. Sometimes I'd catch a piece of it between the trunks, a long pale arm, a turn of a head that was too narrow. Mostly I just felt it, the way you feel somebody standing behind you in an empty house. And then it started to talk to me, not out loud, through the truck, through everything. The radio came on by itself and said, in a calm, flat voice between bursts of static, "You're so tired." I turned it off. The GPS unit on my dash, the one that had been showing a blank gray screen for an hour, suddenly drew a map. A single road, straight, with a little blue dot that was me, and ahead of the dot, a destination pin, and under the pin in clean white letters, rest. And the voice, that pleasant GPS lady voice, said, "In 500 feet, your destination is on the right. You have arrived. You can rest now." I turned it off. The text messages started coming again, one after another, my phone buzzing face down on the seat. I didn't look at them, but the screen lit up through the gaps and through light on the ceiling, over and over, message after message after message, and then my own voice. The CB clicked on by itself, and out of it came my voice, saying the things I'd said out loud to myself an hour ago. "You keep driving. You don't stop for anything. Just get to the sun." It had been listening. The whole time, it had been listening to me, learning the sound of me, and now it played me back to myself, and then it kept going, in my own voice, saying things I hadn't said. "I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I just want to stop. I just want to lie down. It would be so easy to just stop." And the thing is, the terrible thing is, it was right. I was tired. Not road tired, soul tired. I had been gripping that wheel for what felt like days, and every muscle in my body ached, and my eyes were two hot coals, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a small soft voice that sounded exactly like me had started to wonder if it really would be so bad to just take my foot off the gas, to just let the truck roll to a stop, to just rest, just for a minute, just to make it all quiet. That was the closest I came, right there. Not the roof, not the hand on the windshield. This, the moment it spoke in my own voice and made giving up sound like my own idea. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood, hard, real blood, real pain, something that was mine and not its, and I held on to that. The taste of my own blood was the realest thing left in that cab, and I used it to remember who I was. I was a man who drove trucks. I was a man who did not stop. I kept my foot down, and I started to pray, out loud, not pretty, just the only words I had left, over and over. And I don't know if anything heard me, but it gave me something to say that wasn't its words in its mouth, and that was enough to keep my foot where it needed to be. The presence didn't like the praying, or maybe it just decided the gentle way wasn't working, and it was time to be done. The engine died, not slowly, all at once. Every light on my dash went dark. The engine note dropped out from under me. The power steering went heavy and dead in my hands. The truck started to coast, slowing, the only sound the tires on the asphalt rolling down and down towards stop. This was it. This was the thing it had been working toward the whole night. It hadn't been able to make me lift my foot, so it had reached into my truck and turned the key itself. And now my rig was coasting to a stop on a dead straight road at a frozen 1:52 in the morning. And when it stopped, the thing in the trees would have what it wanted. and it would walk out of the dark and come to my door. I could see it already, out the windshield, dead ahead, standing in the middle of the road in my dimming headlights as they faded with the dying battery, tall, patient, waiting for the truck to roll to it. It had stopped pacing. It didn't need to pace anymore. It just stood there, directly in my path, and waited for physics to deliver me. The truck rolled slower. 40, 30, 20. I turned the key. Nothing. Turned it again. Nothing. The figure in the road got clearer as I coasted toward it, and I still couldn't tell you what it was, except that the closer I got, the more my eyes refused to hold its shape. Like looking at it was a thing my brain wasn't built to do. 15 miles an hour. 10. I pumped the clutch and turned the key and screamed at the truck, screamed at it like it could hear me, and I will tell you what I think happened, though I don't understand it, and I never will. I think the same way that thing could reach into my truck and kill it. There was a part of my truck it couldn't touch. The diesel, the compression, the dumb mechanical heart of a machine that doesn't run on electricity, that runs on nothing but air and fuel and pressure, older and stupider and more stubborn than anything a ghost knows how to break. I dropped it into gear at 8 miles an hour and dumped the clutch. The engine caught. It coughed and bucked and caught and roared back to life, all at once with every light on the dash blazing, and the figure in the road was 30 feet in front of me and getting closer fast. I put my foot through the floor. I did not swerve. God help me, I did not swerve. I aimed that truck right at the thing standing in the road and I floored it, because I was done running from it, and if it wanted my truck to stop, it was going to have to do it standing in front of 40 tons of steel. I hit it. I felt it. That's the part I can't get past. The deer wasn't real and the child wasn't real and the car winked out. But this I felt. A heavy, wet, shuddering impact that came up through the frame and the wheel and into my hands. And a sound I won't try to make for you. And for 1/2 of 1 second, my whole windshield was full of a face that had been waiting a very long time to be this close to mine. And then it was gone, under the wheels, behind me. Gone. The wind came back first. I noticed it before I noticed anything else. The sound of the wind in the trees, rushing past my cracked window, the most ordinary sound in the world, and the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. Then the radio, which I hadn't touched, crackled and found a station, an actual station, a man's voice reading farm reports in the flat, bored tone of every overnight AM jockey there's ever been. Then the road curved. It bent, gently, to the right, following the shape of a low hill, and the trees pulled back from the edges, and there was a shoulder, and a guardrail, and a reflective mile marker, and up ahead, oh, up ahead, there were lights, orange sodium lights, a highway interchange, the on-ramp back to the interstate, and beyond it, the great moving river of headlights and taillights of other people, other living people, going somewhere in the night. I looked at my clock. It said 2:14. It was moving again. The minutes were moving again. I came down that on-ramp and merged into traffic, and I want to tell you I felt safe. But I didn't, not for a long time. I drove with both hands locked on the wheel and my eyes flicking to my mirrors. I half expected to see something far back down the ramp, standing where the dark began. There was nothing there, just the empty ramp, and beyond it, the black mouth of the county road, exactly like any other county road anywhere in America. I pulled into the first truck stop I came to, a big bright one with a diner and 40 rigs parked in the lot, And I went inside and sat in a booth and ordered coffee I didn't drink and just listened to people talk. The waitress, the trucker, 2 booths down, complaining about his back. The cook, yelling about an order. Living human noise. I sat there until the sky started to go gray in the windows. Real gray, real dawn, the sun actually coming up, and only then did I let myself believe it was over. I never told my dispatcher the truth. I told him I'd gotten lost on a detour and pulled over to sleep, and he chewed me out for the late delivery, and I took it, and it was the best chewing out of my life because it was so wonderfully, stupidly normal. But here's the thing I did do the next day, when it was bright daylight and I had my nerve back. I drove back out that way. I found the highway exit, and the detour signs were gone, and the DOT had no record of any road work on that stretch that week. And I found the county road, and I drove it in the daytime with the sun high and the radio on. It was just a road, 6 miles of it, with curves and driveways and a couple of farmhouses and an old man on a riding mower who waved at me. And at the end of it, the fork. And at the fork, the right-hand way I'd taken. In the daylight, the right-hand way was a dead end. 40 feet of cracked asphalt and then a rusted gate in a field of tall grass that hadn't seen a vehicle in 20 years. There was no straight road running off into the trees. There was no place for it to go. There never had been. I sat at that gate for a long time, and then I turned around and I drove home. And I have never, not once in the years since, taken a detour after midnight. I will sit on the shoulder of a closed highway until the sun comes up, before I will follow an orange arrow off the road into the dark. Because here's what I know now, and what I want you to know too, if you drive those long, empty roads at night the way I do. Most nights, the detour is just a detour. Most nights, the road bends and dips and brings you back where you belong, and you make your delivery and you go home, and you never think about it. But every now and then, late in the deepest part of the dark, after 1 in the morning when the whole world is asleep, and you're the only thing awake for 100 miles, every now and then, there's an arrow that points you onto a road that doesn't bend. And if you ever find yourself on a road that won't curve, where the signs repeat, and the clock won't move, and the trees make no sound, don't slow down. Don't look too long in the mirror, and whatever climbs up onto your roof, whatever speaks to you in your own tired voice, whatever stands in the road ahead of you, with its arms open and tells you that you've arrived, that you can rest now, keep your foot on the gas, because that road has no end. But you don't have to find that out. You just have to keep driving until it lets you go. And pray to God it lets you go.